Imagine getting fired at 63 years old. 18 years at the same company, gone in 15 minutes. You do the math and realize you'll be completely broke by 65. No pension, no plan B. Most people fold right there. Our guest today didn't fold. He built a seven-figure portfolio by 69 years old using a strategy that fits one page. But first, let's bring in the show. Yo, what up, everybody? Welcome back to Buy, Build, Exit. I'm your host, Rory Red, joined by the GOAT, Charles Oglesby. How you doing, man?
I'm blessed, brother. I'm blessed.
So, well, you in the office still at a busy day, or what's going on?
And it's funny because it's like you hit the 6 o'clock point, and it's like let's get the podcast, and then I'll get on the road later.
Okay.
Otherwise, I won't make it back in time.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy because I was actually sitting on the couch and I was like, man, I'm gonna take a break before we do the pod, and then I lost track of time because the sun's still out. It's still bright outside at 6 p.m. now.
yep. The cool thing is that's more golf.
Yeah.
So I was actually golfing with Dan. I was golfing with Dan like a few weeks ago,
uh,
and it's cool because it gets dark at like maybe like 7:30 now.
yeah.
But in a few more weeks, I think we'll have even more sunlight. So
Yeah, Dan hit me up the other day. He's like, "Are you still trash at golf?" And I was like, "I'm not trash, but I want to get real good so I could pull up on you and Charles low key and pretend like I haven't been practicing, even though I have." Anyway, Charles, today we got a guest whose story hits different, man, because this isn't a guy who started at 25 with a trust fund and a mentor. This guy who failed second grade, wow, that's crazy, failed two businesses, got fired from corporate after 18 years, and didn't have any retirement, wasn't really locked in, and then built a seven-figure portfolio by the time he was 69. And you know how we feel. We feel like we gotta look to our elders to really learn and lock in. So let's bring him in. Where is he at? David, how are you, man?
Great, Roy. Charles, glad to be here with you today.
David, I want to jump right in actually.
Sure.
Um, Take us to the parking lot. Phoenix Heat, cardboard box, 18 years in the box. What was going through your head in that moment when they let you go when you were 63 years old?
Well, like you said, I was 18 years with the same company. I wasn't expecting it. I wouldn't wish that day on anybody. I got fired, and I did the math and discovered that if we drained all of our savings and all of our retirement, we would be broke by 65. When most people are sitting back saying, okay, I'm going to enjoy the fruits of my labor, we'd be who knows where, but it wouldn't be a pleasant place. But that wasn't even the hardest part, to be honest with you. The hardest part was driving home thinking, how am I going to tell my wife, Mary? We'd been married for 30 years at that point, and she did not deserve the mess I just threw our lives into. But anyways, after a couple months of dead end job serving, I did not have my heart in. I did not want to go back to the corporate world, but I had to put food on the table. I had to put a roof overhead. I couldn't just have the luxury of just. So I said, okay. I started resumes and all that kind of thing, and my heart wasn't in it. Finally, after 2 months, I says, "This is it. I'm taking a huge risk." And I went to work as an independent sales agent on straight commission, no salary, no safety net, no benefits. The first months were absolutely brutal, cold calls, constant rejection, rookie mistakes. I heard more no's in that period of time than I think I ever heard in that period of time my whole life. But you know what? It's funny. I looking back, I can reflect on it now. All that rejection, all that resistance I was getting, I felt I needed that to build the mental muscles I needed to push through, to break through that dark period of my life. 10 months after grinding in that job, I was suddenly making more money than my good paying corporate salary. And for a second, and it was just a second, I thought, we made it. But then I realized we didn't make nothing. I've been making decent money my whole career, and look where it got me, on the verge of financial disaster. I says, I have to start learning how to do this investing thing the right way. I've been doing it wrong for 40 years. Now I got to switch over this. I didn't have time for people with hidden agendas and conflicts of interest. I had to learn it myself. I read 21 books. I listened to 13 podcasts consistently on financials. I read blogs and newsletters. Every time I got a good idea, I put it on one piece of paper. When that paper got filled up, then I got another great idea. I had to take the worst one off and put a better one on. I kept refining it. I had to create a set it and forget it approach because I had a business to run now. I didn't have time to watch Wall Street and all that kind of thing. Anyways, 6 years later, by age 69, I did what I thought was impossible. From terrified, and I mean terrified of being broke, to a 7-figure portfolio and real financial freedom. I now know it is never too late to rewrite your story. Because if I can pull that off starting as late as 63, which is embarrassing to admit, anybody can with the right direction. And I truly believe that.
Hearing your story reminds me a lot of what Gary Vee says, where he's like, if you're 40, you're still young. If you're 50, you're still young. If you're 60, you're still young. So it's cool to see what Gary Vee preaches come to pass.
Yeah.
Your CEO flew to Phoenix, met you at McDonald's, and told you to your face that nobody at headquarters could figure out why you weren't effective. Most people hear that and quit. What did you hear?
I gotta say, I'm so impressed with the research you guys did. I just have to say that. I mean, it's really impressive. Yeah, well, he told me he wasn't being mean. He was the CEO of the company. He was passing through town. He didn't want to really invest much time with me because I was a non-producing guy. But he met me at McDonald's for a few minutes, and he did say, he said, David, everyone that talks to you on the phone is impressed with you, but we can't figure out why you're not effective. And he wasn't. Like I said, I didn't take it like he was being mean. I says, I can't figure it out either. I didn't know why. And that night I went home and I said to myself, do I really want to do this? But here's the thing. It could have been a blessing or a curse. I had no backup plan. Not only did my company tell me, the corporation that I was fired from, not only did they tell me I was of no value to them, every company after that I interviewed with for the next couple of months, they all confirmed the first company's assessment. I was of no value. So it's like, what are you going to do when nobody thinks you're of any value? You don't have a backup. I didn't have a backup plan. I had to keep grinding and pushing through. And I'm just grateful I did, because I've never had so much freedom in my life than I have right now, and so much independence. And I needed that experience. It's as hard as it was, as terrible as it seemed to be. It was a blessing. It was a true blessing as I reflect back on it. Now, at the moment, it didn't feel like that way, but it is now.
Yeah, David. That reminds me of, like, I played basketball growing up, and a lot of people think like the best players are in the NBA, and a lot of times it's not always the player, it's the coach or where you land. And sometimes it's just hard for certain people to find a good fit. And what I found is high performers don't fit in non-high performing places. Sometimes they need more struggle, more stress, more of an environment for high performing. And which leads me to my question. Your toughest competitor walked up to your company leadership at a national conference and said, I hate your company, because he couldn't steal a single client from you. What were you doing that made people that loyal?
Well, first of all, I got to say, I've met the guy once very briefly,
Hmm.
and he is the antithesis of me. And he's the hard driving, get in there in their face. Why don't you? You don't want to make money. You need to leave David Nassif and come with me. And that's the opposite of me. I'm totally, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to. When the clients saw that, they just said, no one's ever cared about us like you do, David. I mean, no one's ever served us. He says, when we call you, you pick up the phone. You don't call us 2 days later. When we have a problem, you dive right in there. We need you to go talk to a client personally, you'll do that. The other reps won't do that. And I just felt like I was there to serve them. I was there, the conquest is nice, getting the client. Yeah, that's very tough and nice. But keeping them, I think, is even more valuable. And I'm very proud to say a lot of people tried to steal my clients. And a lot of them lied about, not all of them, matter of fact, not many of them, but some of them did. They would lie about my company, saying they're going under and all that kind of thing. But my clients all stayed loyal to me. And I was loyal to them. I look at them as friends. I really do. I want to help them be a success. I want their companies to be more successful, and I want to do my part to help them be more successful. And I think they see that. And I'm just not in it for a commission or money. I mean, believe me, I'm here for the money. I'm not, but I'm just saying, I'm looking to make a difference in their business, and they see that. And I don't know. One thing I know is I had to be me. I couldn't be the type. I am a type A, but not in the salesman quote sense. I'm not in your face at all. I'm here to serve, that kind of thing. And I couldn't be the other guy. I just couldn't be it. And I think that my genuineness, just who I am, came through, and I connected with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you spent 18 years in corporate. What were you actually doing there, and why did you believe that you were set?
Well, I don't know if I believed I was set, to be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. After about eight, when in my after I'd been there for 10 years, when I had 8 more years to go, I really felt it was time for me to move on. But I'm going to admit to you, and it's kind of embarrassing to admit on your show, I was too afraid. I mean, I was in my late 60s making really good money, new company car. Sometimes I was in the private jet of the company, and I had a great job. My heart was like, I knew it was time to leave, but I didn't have the guts to quit. I just didn't have. I wish I could have said I was strong. I said, "Hey, you could take this job and shove it. I'm going to go." No, that wasn't me. I had to be pushed out of the corporate nest, and that was the greatest gift they gave me. I should send them a gift basket and a thank you letter for firing me, because I didn't have the guts to do that. And they did a great service to me. My life is so much better in so many ways. My lifestyle, my income, my impact I'm making on people's lives is just so much more significant than it ever was when I was in the corporate world. I'm not against people in the corporate world. It's just I should have moved on way earlier than I did, but honestly, I didn't have the guts to quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. During research, you had said that you wandered the financial realm for 40 years until it really hit you and you figured it out. Um, walking in circles and just being on that, like, we'll call it the matrix, being in the matrix. What was it that got you out the matrix and turned you into your own Neo in your life?
That's an amazing question, and it's so appropriate. When I was going through the darkest period of what I was going through, I came across this true story. I'll just share it briefly with you because it really changed my whole outlook and everything. Scientists at the Max Planck Institute did an experiment. What they did is they placed people in the center of a dense German forest, and they told them to walk in a straight line to the edge. Now, these were all confident and capable people, but when the clouds covered the sun and they no longer had that point of reference, the GPS tracking showed they were gradually starting to walk in circular motions. Some of them were ending up right back where they began. And yet, each and every one of them was absolutely convinced they were walking in a perfectly straight line. Roy and Charles, that was me for 40 years, working hard, making good money, thinking I was doing the right thing, actually going in circles financially. That's where I ended up on that financial cliff, ready to fall over. And that's when I said to myself, that's what I need. I need a compass, but not a metal compass that people use when they're walking out in the woods. I need a physical paper compass to keep me directed in the right way, because I'm the kind of guy, the shiny object, that hot tip, boy, you got my attention. I'm riding off in the other direction and I'm going every which way. And I did that for 40 years. I says, I don't have the runway to do that anymore. My runway is more like a helicopter pad than a runway. I don't have much time at all. I need to get steady and focused on this thing. And that's what the compass did for me. It kept me on the straight and narrow when it came to finances. I didn't let my emotions get a hold of me and take me where it did for 40 years. Every time the market was up or down, I was going in the wrong direction. And once I understood it, and once I saw the clear direction, it made all the difference. It brought me peace, it brought me understanding, and it let me use it as a set it and forget approach so I could focus on my company. Last year, we had the best year we've ever had. I can't believe the success of the money we're making in the company. And I couldn't do that if I was always worrying about my investments and all that kind of thing. No, I set it and forget it and move on and focus on what's really important in life and what I want to accomplish.
Awesome.
So you had two failed businesses before the sales agency.
Yeah.
You came up with those 4 non-negotiable rules: no physical products, no staff, no debt, consistent repeat sales. Walk us through how those scars became your blueprint.
Well, yeah, that's true. When I decided to start my own company at 63, that wasn't an easy decision because I'd already proven to myself twice I was a failure at being an entrepreneur. I mean, I didn't do it once, I did it twice. And one of the times plunged me into serious 6-figure debt that took me years to pay off. So this was not an easy decision for me to make. But I tell you, something happened to me a couple months after, about a month or so after I got fired, that changed my whole perspective. And it's when I really hit rock bottom. And I'll just tell you briefly what happened. My wife, she asked me, she says, "Honey, can you go to me with the store to me? There's a big sale and I want to kind of conserve money and I'm going to buy a bunch of things. Can you help me?" I go, "Sure." I had nothing else to do. I was sending out resumes, getting nowhere. So I went with her. I walked in, it was a discount store. I walked into the store and all I saw was women and babies and baby carts. I felt like I was the only man in the store. I'm sure there were other men there, but I didn't see any. And I felt like this is the last place I needed to be. I needed to be out there working, providing for my family. I felt like I had a sign on my chest, biggest loser. And I really felt like that. When my wife was checking out, when I was standing at the edge waiting for her, I wanted to scream. I wanted to break. I felt like I had this corporate straitjacket on and I needed to break loose and I wanted to run. But where was I going to run? There was no place to run. There was nothing to do. I was stuck there. And I tell you, that night when I went home, I realized something. I says, the corporate world told me very clearly I was of no value to them. End of discussion. And so I needed to face my fears. I needed to let that guy that was inside me hiding, scared, out. Because we needed to get out here and we couldn't fool around anymore. We need to make this happen. And yes, I failed twice at those other businesses in my 40s, but you know something? I learned things from that. And even though I'm 2 decades older than I was back then, I'm smarter and I know things that I didn't know back then, and I will not make the same mistakes I made back then. That was an education for me. It was a six-figure education. It probably would have been equal to going to Harvard in terms of the cost, okay? But you know what? It was worth every penny because that third time around, that was really what made all the difference. And I'm so grateful I was forced to do it because, like I said, I had emotional scars, and I wasn't going to do it on my own if I wasn't forced to do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
those are
interesting
just
because
yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off, but that's one of the things that I've realized as well. Like one of the first businesses that I started, I was doing the marketing and also doing the fulfillment. And then my thought was, man, like when I'm doing the fulfillment, I can't do the marketing. So then the business slows down. And so my next step was like, okay, well, now I need to figure out how to have the fulfillment take care of itself. I'll just do the marketing. Did that. Everything went really, really well. And so then the thought was, okay, now I need to outsource marketing, outsource fulfillment, and let those two things kind of work together. But I learned that by doing something, it working out, but not working out as well as it should have worked out, and then just kind of iterating as I went along. And that's kind of sounds like what you've done.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know, it's funny. I talk about my financial wealth compass, my one-page financial wealth compass. But what I also did, and I don't talk about this much in the book, I may have mentioned it once or twice. I made a one-page agency compass for my company, and that also kept me the mistakes I made in the past. I put on there just that I didn't repeat, and the things I was reading books like not only financial books, but I was reading startup books on how to start a company, all that kind of thing, and marketing and sales books. And every time I got a good idea, I put it on my agency compass too. And that really helped me a lot because I didn't go in circles. I couldn't afford to do that. And after about 10 months, like I told you, things really took off. Within, like I say, within 10 months, I was making more than my corporate salary. Within the next year, I was making double my corporate salary, and it just kept going up from there. And I was making a six-figure corporate salary. I mean, it was a very good job and very good company. But but this blew everything away that I did in the past in a big way.
Yeah. I didn't have this question written down, but that it seems like you are really good at making one pagers that then pull action out of you, like really focused action. Is there some type of process or thinking behind making one pagers, and how does that help?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just show you real quick if it's okay. And I'm going to give this to all your listeners for free, and there's no cost to this at all. This is the actual one-page world compass. I don't know if you can see it. Okay, and basically it has two columns: the 9 trail markers and the 5 north stars. I'll just kind of tell you what it means. The 9 trail markers, it tells you how to get from point A to from where you're at to real financial freedom. And everyone's going to be at different points. For example, I start out with career success and income. Most financial books I read, they never talked about your income and your job. They assumed, okay, if you're reading our book, you're probably already making good money. No, that's not the case with everybody. Not everybody's making great money. A lot of people are underpaid, underemployed, and they're stuck. And so the first 2 chapters are devoted just to that. But then it goes on. Like some people might say, well, I got okay with my income, David, but I have a debt problem. I got tons of credit card debt. Well, then that's step number 4. And so you just pick up where you're at. and then you go from there. But this other side, this is really important. The 5 North Star principles, this keeps you out of trouble. Okay. I'm the kind of guy, like I told you before, I go after the shiny objects and the distractions. I get really distracted easy. This kept me on course. These are principles that guided me. So when something wasn't on my list here of the 9 trail markers, I knew, hey, that violates one of my North Star principles. I'm not doing that. And it really saved me a lot of money and mistakes by doing that. I did something very similar for my agency. I actually have one for my health, believe it or not. I could tell you stories about that. And it just, when it's an important area in your life and you don't want to mess it up, I can't think of a better thing to do than this to keep you clear. And once every week at 4 o'clock on Friday, I have on my electronic calendar, I have a 2-minute meeting. And I sit down and I go over this compass with myself. And where am I at? Where am I going? I remember I was going over my North Star principles. And I remember past week, I made an impulse purchase. And one of the rules is, if an impulse purchase, you got to wait 24 hours before you make that purchase to make sure it's not just, something. But I caught myself early because of the meeting. I did, instead of looking back at $100,000 loss, 3 years from now, I caught it before it was even expensive. And that's what this power of this is. It's not just getting you where you want to go, but it's keeping you out of trouble. And that's half the battle right there. Keeping out of trouble, I think.
Yeah, we someone here may or may not have made an impulse purchase. Just copped a Cybertruck. Was that a impulse purchase, Charles?
Interestingly enough, we actually just rented it for the weekend for my son's birthday.
Oh, okay.
But what was cool
That's
about it is one of the concerns that we had about the vehicle is, would it fit in the driveway? Would I be able to have my other car parked next to it? And so it was a little bit of research that went into that, just driving it and trying to fit it into tight spaces. So it was research. And so now that when I do make that decision, it will be an informed decision. It won't be an impulse.
Yeah, that thing's clean. I was seeing them. I'll be like, that thing's clean. All right, David, you started this agency at 64, straight commission. Your wife Mary started driving you the prospects, handling admin, and you turned into a 2-person operation. Charles,
Yep.
that's the operator spouse dynamic we don't talk about enough. David, how critical was Mary to the turnaround?
Oh, very critical. When I was doing it by myself the first couple of weeks, I was struggling. She could see that. This is all new to me. I didn't know what I was doing. And she says, honey, I'm going to go with you and I'm going to drive you so you can focus on what you do best. And she was good at navigating me around and that kind of thing. We broke the city up into grids and we would work a grid, an area. And I was able to stay focused on the call. I was taking phone calls, texting, emails. And so it was safer and was more direct. And she was also almost like a little sales manager in a way for me. Like I went to a couple of clients and maybe 6 months later, I said, oh, I've been to that guy twice. He's not interested. She goes, you get in there and see if he's interested. You don't know. He could have changed his mind. He could be a new guy. I come out smiling with a contract. I got it. And so she gave me that nudge that, if I was myself, I'd have probably talked myself out of it. And so in the beginning, I needed that. Now I have a disciplined approach and we recall people that said no and that kind of thing. But back then I was still kind of developing my compass. So no, our personalities are very different. She's more an administrative type person. I'm more of the sales person and marketing person. And so we were perfect comp. I remember our office, she says, honey, we need to make files for these clients. I go, files? We don't need files. We just need sales. We don't need files. So she didn't listen to me. She made files. Those files saved us so many times. I mean, I can't believe it. So she was like, it was a perfect opposite person kind of a thing that I was a real blessing. Now my son's joining the company and he's doing phenomenal. Like I say, that's one of the reasons we had such a good year last year because he's been a great help to me. So it's funny how things just come together in interesting ways and you don't really plan it out that way necessarily.
That's awesome.
I've been a huge proponent of family business for the longest. So I love to see the success of the husband-wife team and also bringing your son in and seeing that it truly does make a difference. I always feel like it's different to have somebody who truly has your back, has your vested interest at heart. You guys have the same exact interest to actually working alongside you in your business. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
However, you had competing reps that were spreading lies about your company going under, trying to poach your clients. You were the oldest guy in the market. How did you survive that?
It was really just, I just was myself. I was honest with all my clients. I think they sensed that. I wasn't, some young kid just trying to do whatever. And they told me stories. They would tell me stories. Yeah, one of your competitors came in here. He was all like nasty with us because we wouldn't sign up with him. And we said, no, we like David. No, no, you don't want to make as much money then apparently because David, you're not going to make as much. And and I think that actually brought them to me more. They connected with me more. They were more loyal to me after that. It was like, and they would tell me these stories and, about this guy, and, this guy's bad mouthing you about this. But no, after a while, no one was, I think my reputation started to develop in the market and people started to know who I was. And I don't play games. I don't spread lies about it. I didn't do that. But fortunately, and I don't want to make everyone do that. Most of them didn't do that. Most of them are decent competitors, but there's that percentage in every profession, I think, that, gives everyone a bad name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, David, you built a 7-step wealth accelerator. Our audience are people buying, small, medium businesses, 1 to 5 million, up to 10 if they have a little bit more capital. Um, Using SBA and commercial financing, things of that, and sellers financing. How does your framework apply to someone deploying capital into acquisitions versus index funds?
Well, I believe because I've done both, and I've had small business loans, like I told you, with my one business that I failed significantly with. And
Mhm.
I honestly, looking back now, I wish I had done both in the beginning. I was all for building the business, 100%. All in, and that's good. I don't mean that's a bad attitude, but boy, it would have been nice to say, wait a minute. In addition to that, I'm going to diversify a little bit, and I'm going to build some wealth privately for myself as well as building my business. And that is a mistake I made that I regret now and I learned from, because now I aggressively am building my business and I'm aggressively building my net worth. And you can do them at the same time. It's a lie to think you can't do them at the same time. You just got to do them wisely. And I learned how to do it wisely through my compass. Can I give you what, and I don't know if I think this will apply to your listeners, because if they are going to, well, I think it applies to anything. Let me just share with you what I think one of the biggest financial mistakes people make, entrepreneurs and everybody, okay? And that is they are paying tiny termite-sized fees that are quietly inflicting termite-like destruction on their portfolios and their net worth. Let me share what I'm talking about. You got two people, A and B, both starting out in their career, like say they're 25, they're going to work for probably 40 years to the 65. They both decide modestly to put $25 a week away to investments, okay? Person A chooses a low-cost index fund with a 0.03% management fee. Person B goes to an advisor who charges a full 1% and it puts them in a fund with an active fund with a 5.75 upfront load and a 0.66% ongoing management fee, which is both are common. Okay,
Yeah.
fast forward 40 years, both equal contributions, both equal market returns. At 65, person A has a $1 million portfolio. Person B has a $570,000 portfolio. That's no different in market returns, no different in contribution. The only difference is these tiny little fees that seem so small when the broker and the agent and the salesman tell you about them, but compounding, they make a huge difference. And this was assuming they never got a raise. If we factored in raises, that $430 difference would even be bigger. But here's the tragedy of all. Person B probably feels like he got great service. He liked his advisor. He knew his kid's name. They went golfing a couple of times. Little did he realize he did the equivalent of funding someone else's retirement with half of his own money. And here's the sad thing about this. I'm going to admit to you guys I never questioned fees for 40 years. I just assumed those were the rules of the game. Once I made my compass, I understood the rules we don't question can cost us the most. In person B's case, it cost him $430,000. Little things like that aren't painful and aren't expensive. Don't you tell me that your entrepreneurs can't put $25 a week away. You know what I mean? That we're not talking huge money. We're not talking distracting from your business. And I'm telling you, little things like that can make a huge difference in your net worth and your ability to even self-fund future businesses, in my opinion, anyways.
Question the rules.
They always talk about compound interest, but it sounds like you have like the compound fees.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's anti-compound. It's compounding against you with the fees. That's the reverse. And can I say one more thing about another big lie that people think? They think, oh, I don't make enough money to invest, David. If I made the kind of money Roy and Charles made, I could invest, but I don't have that. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can barely make it. Let me tell you why that's a lie. The NBA, the average NBA player makes over $10 million a year. I didn't say in their career. I said in a single year. And yet, 5 years from retirement, after retirement, 60% of them are broke, according to the Netflix documentary Broke. And the NFL is even worse. In the NFL, after only 2 years of retirement, 78% of them are bankrupt or in serious financial stress. And that's according to Sports Illustrated. Now, compare that to Dale Schroeder, a basketball loving carpenter who made average to below average income his entire life, but he lived on less than he earned and he invested the difference wisely. He ended up with a $3 million portfolio. That's more than most NBA and NFL players with their tens of millions of dollars. So I'm telling you, one of the things I woke up on about the compass is making money is different than building wealth. Those pro ball players, they were pros at making money. Most of them, not all of them, most of them were terrible at building wealth. Dale Schroeder, he was pretty lousy at making money, but he was a master at building wealth. I'm telling you, it doesn't take a ton of money. I don't care if you're a high earner or a low earner, everyone can do this. It's not complicated. Wall Street wants you to think it's complicated because then they can bring in their advisors with fees, but it's crazy. It's not complicated. It's simple. That's why I can put it all on one piece of paper and make it work.
I think that kind of goes right into our next question. You make a bold claim in your book that ordinary employees can build more wealth than many business owners without the stress or the risk. Can you make your case for that, I guess, position to a room full of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, let me tell you the deal here. I doubled my portfolio 3 times in a 6-year period. Most people who know the market well say, Dave, that's impossible. The market didn't increase that much. You're either a liar or you're delusional. Well, let me explain to you something. I wasn't day trading. I wasn't chasing crypto. I wasn't trying to time the market. I was doing something so simple and so boring it would put you to sleep. And here's the crazy part about it is when the market was down, I was thrilled. When other people were panicking and selling, I was buying more shares at discount prices. My only regret was the market wasn't down more during that 6-year period. But here's the crazy thing about it. It's the math that really surprised me. There's a thing called the rule of 72 in investments. And what it says is, if you're getting a 10% return on your money, which is very realistic in the market, if you do it in a certain way, it will take you 7.2 years to double your money. Okay, or 86 months. Once I got my compass, the first double occurred in just 30 months. Second one, 13 months. The third one, 29 months. For an average of 24 months, way less than half the expected 86-month time period. And the reason I was able to do that, it wasn't the returns. I was doing 3 things that I didn't do for 40 years. And I wish I could have told my younger self this, because that made all the difference. One, I had some discipline this time, and I said, I'm going to put a percent of my income away every single month. 2, I'm going to get in the right kind of investments. For me, it was low-cost index funds. I only own 2 of them. It's crazy simple. The 2 I own, one is I own every publicly traded stock in the United States. The second one I own is every publicly traded stock outside the United States. So I literally own every publicly traded stock on the planet. For me to go to zero, the entire world economic system would have to collapse. And if that happens, we have more problems than money. Okay, yeah. And so I could sleep well at night. I didn't have to stress about it because I was so highly diversified. And the last point is I use market volatility to work for me instead of against me. When everyone else was buying high and selling low, which is what I did for 40 years, by the way, so I'm not pointing fingers, okay? Once I understand the system, when I understand how it worked, I did the opposite. And I tell you what I was able to do now, I was able to build my wealth twice as fast. And here's the important part, with half the risk compared to how so many other people are doing it and compared to how I did it for 40 years. That made all the difference. So I'm sorry, I forgot your question, but there was an answer in there somewhere. I apologize. I apologize.
Yeah. You start to touch on it. The Smart Protection Fund, you say the traditional emergency fund has a serious flaw. What is it, and how does your version work differently?
This is controversial, so I don't usually talk about this on podcasts, but you guys did so much research. I'm amazed. Here's what I've been told all my life, and you guys probably have this. And this is what the gurus tell you. This is what all the finance. By the way, when I did my compass, I questioned everything the gurus said, and I did the math, okay? And it was a real eye-opener on some of these gurus, okay? Some of the really biggest names you've all heard of. One of the things they say is everybody, once you get out of debt, okay, first got out of debt, which I agree with that, a consumer debt, I don't mean mortgage debt, and I'm not talking business debt either. What they say is then get a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, okay, which is what I did and everyone does. And they say to put it in safe, like money markets or your bank with a high interest, return, that kind of thing. And just do that for you have that money for 40 years, your whole working life, and you'll have it. Well, I said to myself, wait a minute, that's interesting, but what would happen if you took that same we hear if you do a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, how long is that going to take the average person to save up? It's going to take about a year to save up. Wouldn't you agree? At least a year. Some people more than a year, to 3 to 6 months of your income to put aside. So that means you're out of the market. Then they say don't invest until after that. That means you're out of the market for a year. So say you do that and you're out of the market for a year, okay? And then you also put it in the lowest return stuff, which is these guaranteed, deals. Okay, you're going to have. I've calculated if you have a $25,000 emergency fund, when you get 65, you'll have a $99,000 emergency fund. 25, 99. Okay, now let's say you do it differently. Let's say you do this instead, which is what I figured out. You do the emergency fund, but you also start investing at the same time. Remember, you just got out of debt. So you have cash flow now freed up. Before you go eating it all up with other things, let's just go ahead and get that emergency fund and get the investment started. Okay, now you didn't sit out a year, and now you're putting it into these low-cost index funds that are highly diversified. I mean, so diversified. And yes, the market goes down, I agree, but it'll always come back, and it always goes to a new height. That's 200 years of history telling us that. This is not me wild assumptions on my part. Okay, the difference is, when you turn 65, what you'll have, instead of a $99,000 emergency fund, you'll have a $2 million emergency fund. That's the power of questioning what these gurus are telling us and understanding there are other options. And I know some people say that's too high risk, David. Well, once you get past a couple of years and your portfolio is double, like when mine was doubling, even if it takes 7 years, now you have twice a bigger portfolio. So if the market gets cuts in half, guess what? You still got the same amount everybody else has in their bank portfolio and their bank emergency funds. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but man, a 99,000 to 2 million, that's a pretty significant amount of money. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to me, and I like how you're kind of taking what everybody else says and reimagining it and saying, well, maybe there's another way that this can be done instead of just following the herd of financial literacy individuals. Figna versus FIRE. What's the distinction and why should a 35-year-old operator building a portfolio of small businesses care?
Well, as everyone knows, FIRE is financial independence, okay, and everyone wants that, and I agree, that's a wonderful thing to have, but that's more focused on stopping work. Most FIRE people are, okay, I want to get all this money so I can stop working and just lay on the beach or play golf or whatever it is. Okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't like that's not my style. Okay, I go with Figna, financial independence, graduate to the next adventure. That's what I've been doing, and that's what I love. I cannot see. We live on a beautiful golf course. I mean, it's a gorgeous golf course. I look back at those. I know you both golf because I heard you guys talking earlier. I'm happy for you, and I'm happy for those golfers behind me. But I can't do that. It's just not in my bones. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. It's a good thing. I know people. A lot of my friends golf. They love it. I can't do that. I got to do. So I'm a different kind of person. I will never retire. I could afford to retire. I told you my portfolio doubled 3 times. My last double put me in this 7-figure. Now, my last double after that one, I've had a fourth one after that. It was a 7-figure double. The one I'm working on now is going to be a double 7-figure. I could have retired years ago. I'll never retire. I'm having too much fun. I just enjoy what I'm doing. I love my business and working with my son now that he's joined me. It's even more fun. I love my charity work I do. I do volunteer work every month. Okay, and I love writing this book. I just started a new book. When I was 72, I'm 72 right now. The book just came out. It's like, I just want to keep doing it. I can't wait to see what I'm going to do at 82. Matter of fact, you guys got to have me back on your short 82 and we can talk about my last new adventure. Okay. I'm not saying retirement's bad. It's fine for the right person. Okay. If that's what you want to do, it's just not for me. But when you're financially free, now choices become more opportunities than requirements. And I love choices. I don't want to be required to do these things. That's why I think Figna is better for me.
Yeah, and you got more energy than 20-year-olds, especially Gen Z 20-year-olds. You talk about a financial freedom number. One number that tells you if you can retire today. How does someone calculate theirs?
It's so incredibly simple. And I know the financial planners like to make it complicated because they want you to think it's complicated because that's how they make their money. Wall Street loves complexity, but the truth is simplicity is for winners, complexity is for victims. And I truly believe that too many people, they're making things complex so they can have victims. And I don't want to be a victim anymore. And that's why I made my compass. I'm not going to be a victim. Okay. So anyways, it's not hard. All you do is, okay, say you pick a number. You know what your living expenses are now, okay? So depending on how far you have to go, you can say, okay, let's just easy number, $100,000. Say hundred. If I had $100,000 a year income, I'd be comfortable just for the average number, okay? Then what you do is you take your guaranteed income, Social Security, pensions, annuities, whatever you got. Say it's $24,000, okay? Then you just subtract the two, and that's the difference is $76,000. And all you do is you say, okay, that's what my portfolio has to generate on average every year for me to live a $100,000 lifestyle. And you just take that number, that 76,000, you divide it by 5%, if that's what your withdrawal rate is, which I think is a realistic number. And that gives you $1.52 million. And when you have $1.52 million, if you like your job and want to keep working, go ahead. But if you're ready to quit, then just say, hey, I'm out of here. Curtis, a drafter, he did this calculation at age 60. He found out his number was $1.4 million. When he examined his retirement and his portfolio and his brokerage accounts, he had $2.4 million. He could have retired years earlier, and he never knew it. It's not a complicated formula. It's in the book, and I just explained it to you. You don't even need the book. And that's all you have to do. It's not, it's not nearly as complicated as everyone trying to make it to be, because it's just simple.
That's a bar right there. He
Bars.
said that it's people who make it complicated or want to be victims.
That's
Yeah,
so true.
exactly.
That's so true.
The three C's of conflicts. You say they
Oh,
sabotage even smart people's wealth. Break those down
yes.
for us.
This is something that everybody needs to understand. And I tell you, I didn't understand this clearly, but the three C's. First is the conflict of interest. This is when someone's paycheck dramatically impacts the advice they give you. For example, a realtor wants to close the deal, creates fear of missing out, and they make their $15,000 commission check, even though it may not be the right house. Or an insurance agent wants to sell you the whole life because they make a killer commission off that rather than the term. Okay, these are people who what's in their best interest and what's your best interest are completely opposite, and that's dangerous. That's the first C. That's the first conflict. The second one is conflict of information gap. Let me give you a non-financial example of this one. Okay, when I was 55, just a young kid back then, when I was 55, I went to the doctors and had my annual checkup. And he said that, David, we took your blood and you have cholesterol of 235. That's dangerous. You could have a stroke. We need to get you on statins right away. Well, I says, wait a minute, doc, let me just do a little research. He goes, oh, no, don't do the research. He goes, and they give me this story about his father, how he had high cholesterol, he died of a stroke, and how it could have saved his life. And he was almost in tears in his office. I said, well, that's a very touching story, but I really need to research myself. He did not like it, but what could he do? So I left. I did some research, really deep dive it. I found out that lifestyle, how you eat, how you work out, that has a big impact on it. I did a 180-degree turnaround on how I lived. Went back after 90 days of this new lifestyle. I went back, got a new blood test. It went from 235 to 175. Anything under 200 is really good, okay? And I was so excited to tell the doctors, and I went to tell him what I did. He didn't want to hear it. He says, that's crazy. You should be on statins. He says, that's just a fad. He says, you're not, that's crazy. And what fad? I'm now 72. You know what my cholesterol is now? 165. It's even less than it was back then. I'm not saying he's a crook. Maybe he was a crook. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what he learned in medical school, I believe, was the only two things that help people is drugs and scalpels. Everything
Yep.
else, none of this woo-woo, health style stuff, that's goofy. Well, I'm sorry. That was a conflict of information gap. What he thought was true and what was really true, there's a gap in that. And it's a big gap. And that's why I have my own one-page health compass too. I don't market it, but it's privately for me because I'm not going to put my life, my health in someone else's hands. This is not going to do. I'm the CEO of my own health. The last C is conflict of responsibility. That's when everybody assumes everybody else did the research, but nobody did it. Okay. I know a guy that he's in investments. He's a decent person, but he got all excited about this one investment plan he was offering people. And he got people in his church involved in it because he really believed it. And the people in the church, they trusted him, they knew him, and he wasn't a crook. He was a decent person. Well, anyways, here was the problem though. The people in his church assumed he did the research. He assumed the guy offering the investment did the research, and nobody did the research. Everybody lost big money, and everybody lost friendships, serious friendships. And what I'm saying here is that nobody cares more about your wealth than you. Nobody cares more about um, where you're going to put your money and if it's going to be a good thing or not than you. There's too many conflicts out there, and the worst one is conflict of responsibility when you let somebody else take responsibility for it. I know, Charles, you're an attorney. I heard, okay, and that's a great thing. But I'm not an attorney. I don't have the knowledge you have. But if I have a contract, the first place it goes, and you might hate me for this, but I scan it into AI and I tell, okay, give me it in plain English, okay? Then I may go to an attorney to give me the help I need, to whatever it is. But we can at least do that or do something, or a good attorney and say, give me your opinion on this. But when you're putting serious money on the line, those people put serious money on the line, you can't leave it up to the salesman to do your research for you. That's too dangerous. That's why for 40 years, one of the reasons that I was where I was, because I was just running into all these conflicts. I wasn't conscious of them. I wasn't even realizing I was getting ripped off. I didn't even know it.
Yeah. The going to the doctor about your
Cholesterol.
cholesterol. I'm so passionate about that because I went deep on this, and Ansel Keys about how he lied about all of his work, and he got a Nobel Peace Prize, and how the health insurance companies, if your cholesterol is higher, they actually give you a longer lifespan than when it's lower. And in LDLs and HDLs, that's so true. I'm so passionate
Yeah.
about that. But you tell a story about a janitor with a high school diploma, retired with 8 million. I need to switch up what I'm doing. 1 in 4 doctors end up with six figures. 60% of NBA players go broke within 5 years. What's actually going on there? Is it behavior, structure, or both?
I think it's a little of both. I think part of it, the biggest part of it, is lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. Benjamin Franklin said the best investment we can make is in knowledge, and I truly, truly believe that. I think those NBA players, they're swarmed by all these helpers who want to help them make their investments and make them rich. I've heard that one of the biggest things is they get in these investment and they end up with nothing. They all these schemes and but they don't know. And it's just they buy the highest, the most expensive luxury cars because they're having more money than they ever had in their life. And they just don't understand that there's people out there who are just their whole mission in life is to get money out of you, and it's not in your best interest. It's not in a good way, and I'm not saying all advisors are bad. Please, there are people who need advisors for behavior modification. When the market crashes, they need someone to tell them, calm down, it's going to be just fine. They can't. When I got that, I was that way. I was all emotional, but now that I have the knowledge, I use it to my advantage. And that's the problem. I think the number one problem is they just don't have the knowledge. That's why I made this simple one-page wealth compass and why I made the book. Let me just show you how they go together real quick. It just takes a second here. But I told you about, say you're on step 4 now, and you're saying, okay, I need to get out of debt. How do I do that? Well, what you do is you pull out the book, the one-page wealth compass book, and you go to chapter 4, and you just read how to get out of debt. And it's simple, effective ways to do this. Or if it's investing, how to do that. And so this is kind of like your navigation links to take you to the right piece of the book. And the book, let me tell you one thing. I didn't write it for advisors and investment pros. I wrote it for the average person like me who didn't understand what he was hearing and understanding what people were saying about things. And I put it in story form so people can hear. Here's what people mess up, and here's why they mess up. Here's a story of a mess up person. I was a big mess up person. I have a lot of stories about me. And here's a success story about somebody who succeeded. And people are telling me, David, when you put it in stories like that, then you tell us the tool or the principle. It makes so much sense now. I heard these terms for years. I didn't know what they were. And now you're explaining it let me just share one quick thing because this is so important. This is from, I read every review personally, and this is one I got from a clinical psychologist, 25 years of experience. He was facing his own career crisis. He said, David, The one-page wealth compass gave me the exact financial hope and practical steps I needed. But here's my favorite part of his quote. He says, I couldn't put the book down. That tells me it's clicking with people because it's stories. People love stories and they're true stories. And when you explain it to them in simple terms, it's just people are saying, finally, I get it. And they don't panic when the market's down. My wife, she laughs at me. Sometimes I watch the morning financial news, just for entertainment purpose. I would never take advice from those people. And one day the morning market was crashing. They were doom and glooming, pull out of the market. It's all, and I'm laughing at him. I was, honey, don't laugh. That's serious. I go, honey, they don't know what half the time they're wrong. Half the time they're right. It's just a joke. Warren Buffett says forecasts tell you a lot about the forecaster, but nothing about the market. And that is so true. It tells you nothing about the market. Stop listening to these people and just understand truth. And it's so much safer that way. It's so much safer.
Huge.
So you described lying awake at 2 a.m. doing the math on whether to quit. You almost surrendered. You said it would have been the responsible move, but what was the exact thought that pulled you back from the edge?
I tell you, there's a couple of things, but one of the things was when I went home that day, I never told you what happened. When I went home that day to tell my wife, I told you how hard that felt for me. First thing my wife did was she was so supportive. She believes in me more than I believe in myself. She always has. I got so lucky when I married her. I can't tell you how lucky I am. But anyways, she says, honey, you're going to do fine. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you're going to figure out a way to get out of this. I know you are. But you know what, guys? I got to tell you one thing. I knew my wife for 30 years at that point, and I looked in her eyes, and I could see concern. And I did not want her to go through that. I says, this is not fair to her. I have got to make this work. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet. This was like the day I got fired, so I was still in a daze, still numb. But I says, I got to figure this out, not for me, but for her. And that was a real driving force. When you have somebody who depends on you, who loves you, who trusts you, who believes in you, and you feel like you let them down, you feel like you failed to them, man, that is either a wake-up call that was what I needed at that time. And, I've heard something too. My faith had a big part in this too. I've heard, you probably may have heard this. It says, pray like everything depends on God, then get up and work like everything depends on you. That's all I was doing for those first 10 months, praying and working, because that's the only thing I knew how to do. And then I remember in the darkest moment, I remember reading this quote from somebody they wrote about, they were in a very dark time too, and they prayed to God. They says, please relieve me of this pain. Please take this away from me. I can hardly handle it. And the answer they got in their mind in their prayer was, I love you too much to deny you of this experience. That was me. I did not want to be in that situation, but God loved me enough he did not deny me of that experience, and I needed that experience. I am such a stronger person right now. I'm contributing more than I ever have. I have a lifestyle that I've never had before, and I just have the freedom that I wake up and have to pinch myself most mornings because I just can't believe the freedom I have. I thank God that I went through that misery. I thank Him so much. I thank Him in my prayers daily. I really do.
Yeah, faith. Your former coworker Corey said sold his business under pressure and called it the deepest regret of his career. We talk a lot about acquisitions. I personally would love if Corey sold to me under pressure.
Yeah.
But how often do you think people sell too early out of fear?
I don't know, but Corey's early. That was an important discussion I had. I just casually asked him one day because I knew he owned his own business and all that kind of thing. I said, Corey, why did you sell? Are you happy you did that? And boy, I could see the regret in his face. He says, David, I should have hung in there. I should have figured it out. I should have put the work in. Because now Corey was like me, kind of trapped in this corporate job, and he wasn't really satisfied with it, and he was really feeling trapped. And his brother, who bought the agency from or the business from him, he was like living a lifestyle like you couldn't believe. I mean, it was night and day type of. Corey's discussion that I had with him that day, I kept replaying that in my mind during those 10 months of darkness. I kept replaying, I do not want to have Corey's regret. That was another gift I was given, to have that discussion with Corey, because I saw the regret in his face, the expression in his face on how deeply he regretted giving up like that. And I'm not saying there isn't times where we should, throw in the towel, like maybe it's going nowhere. But that wasn't for him, and for me, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to do that. I was going to have that regret.
And that's a huge distinction for the audience because I'm actually in the process. I sent over documents to take an option on this guy's company, and he hasn't gotten back to me all day. But I understand that this is a life changing decision, right?
Oh
He's got
yeah,
to talk over it with his wife and really make sure that it's the best thing for him and his family.
yeah, that is.
Um, you've said that I'm slow to catch on, but once I do look out, what does that mean for people who are not the smartest person in the room but refuse to quit?
Well, I just got to tell you, okay. My wife, when she was a youth, they gave her an IQ test, and she scored 1 point shy of genius. 1 point shy. I, on the other
131.
hand, as you mentioned, yeah, I don't know. I know the number because I'm not
Yeah.
smart enough to know the number. But I, on the other hand, failed the second grade. So I always say, together we make one average intelligent person. Okay, and I really believe that. Too. I really do. But I don't know. I just don't think that IQ is. I know a lot of people who graduated from Ivy League college, not a lot, but some people, I shouldn't say a lot, who graduated from Ivy League colleges who have got the academic credentials I could never dream of having. And I mean, right now, they're in not the greatest situation financially. And I know people who were high school dropouts who are doing amazing. I mean, like sometimes those high educated people work for the guy that was a high school dropout. So I don't think I think getting an education is important. I really do, but I don't know how about IQ. I don't know how important that is. I really don't. I mean, it's nice to have a good one, I guess, but I don't know
Yeah.
It's more
at that
about the
point. Anyway.
hustle
Yeah, I
than
think
the
so.
IQ.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
usually use it like if I'm not really mad at someone but just messing with them, I'll kind of use it as like a way to mess with them like oh, you're arguing with a guy with IQ with a mental IQ, but it doesn't really matter. It's all about the work and just locking in.
yeah,
Um
yeah. That's
you
right.
talked about Mary. Mary also edited everything you wrote for years. The one day she handed a document back with zero markings, you call
Oh my
that your
gosh.
Eliza Doolittle moment. What did that teach you about growth that applies to operators and founders?
Well, I'm just shocked at the research you guys did. I've never had. I've been on like 50 podcasts in the last 2 months, and no one's researched like you guys. No one. Anyways, my wife, when we got married, I was working for a corporation, and they, I was doing some, I had some presentations and I'm really good at pitching and presenting, but wasn't good at writing. And my wife saw an
Same.
email I was going to send out, and she goes, "Honey, you can't send that out like that." I go, "Why not?" He goes, "Honey, it's not even legible." And so she was a technical writer for a major European corporation, and so
Mhm.
she rewrote it for me, and it was still my ideas, but it was like understandable. It was like in English all of a sudden, and so
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And so after that, I had her everything I wrote, but I was learning from her. I saw the changes she was making. I was adjusting, and every time I gave her a change, not every time, but in time, her modifications were less and less and less. And then one day I gave it to her, and I said, "Honey," she didn't give it back to me. I said, "Honey, I need that. It's going out in the morning. Where's that dang thing?" She goes, "Honey, I looked at it. No changes are necessary." And I go, "What?" And it really was like I'm sure most of your listeners don't even know who Liza Doolittle is, but it was My Fair Lady. But when she was in that ballroom and she fooled all the aristocrats and they thought she was royalty because she was a street urchin before this, that's how I felt. I was a
Yeah.
street urchin when it came to English. I was terrible at English. And all of a sudden, I could write legibly on my own. I can't even believe I wrote this book on my own. I just can't believe it.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done that without her. It was her training. So when we think that we just aren't good at something, wait a minute, hold on. Maybe it wasn't that we didn't have the right kind of training. It doesn't mean that we don't have the potential to be great at it. And I never thought I would be a writer. Matter of fact, I never, when I was in high school and college, I mean, my English grades were my worst grades. I mean, it's just like, that's why I couldn't write and now it's just like, wow, if my teacher could see this book I wrote and the people, if you go on to Amazon and read the reviews, I mean, a lot of people write, good book, 2, 3. They're writing paragraphs on how this is like, wow, somebody's finally writing it so we can understand it. And it's because I'm so stupid, I had to dumb it down for me. It's not for them. And the thing is, I'm just shocked that I could do this. I mean, and I'm not bragging. Please, I hope this doesn't come off as bragging. I'm not trying
No.
because I'm not smart. I mean, I'm not. But it's
Yeah.
just that don't be thinking because you're not good at something that you're just not good at it. You weren't born with the right genes. No, no, no. You might not just been got the right kind of training that you really
Yeah.
need.
I resonate with that because my first book, I had like 9 misspellings because I write like I talk, and I'm really good at talking. And
Yeah.
people will like kind of make fun of me and different things. I'm like, yo, that book sold 12,000 copies. Like, chill out.
Yeah. Right.
But
Exactly.
but also what you're saying is like you improve over time. You improve by getting the reps, putting something out
Yep.
there, refining it, and continuing to
Yep.
work at it. You are financially free now. You built this wealth late. What's your relationship with money today versus when you were chasing corporate paychecks?
It's funny. It's not as important to me, and this sounds probably weird to say this, but it's not as important to me if it was one when I didn't have it. I just before my identity was tied up in my corporate job, my title, my company cars, the private jets that I got to fly on in our company, and that all was me. And when that was taken away from me, it was like I lost my identity. Who am I? I don't even, am I even a value of anybody? Now I only have 3 identities, guys. One, I'm a child of God. Two, I'm my wife's husband. Three, I'm my son's dad. No one's going to take those away from me. Those are the only titles that are important to me at this point in my life. Nothing else is important. Yes, I'm making more money than I ever had. Yes, I have a net worth higher than I've ever dreamt I would ever have in my life. And that's nice, and I really enjoy that freedom it gives me. But that's not the core of who I am. If I lost everything tomorrow, again, if the whole world economic system collapsed and I lost everything tomorrow, I'd be fine. I'm sure it'd be tough, and I'm not going to act like I wouldn't care, but I would care. But I wouldn't feel like I did when I lost my job, where I didn't know who I was. I knew who I was, and yeah, I'd have some struggles probably if I lost everything, but I'd still be. In my core would still be intact, solidly, very
Yeah.
solidly.
And I'm glad you're doing this because it leads to my next question. A lot of people, they get money, they kind of go away, they stay away, they don't really help others. And um, which brings me to my question, like, why write the book? You don't really need the money, but why not just disappear? What makes you want to help us and do this podcast tour and really just help people that are trying to get to your level?
Let me tell you, here's the reason. I never wanted to be a writer. I mean, yeah, I got good at it, but I never wanted to write a book. That wasn't my goal. This one-page wealth compass thing I wrote, this is not. I did not write this to market it or sell it. I wrote it for me, for my survival. That was the only thinking in my mind. But when I got out of that mess, I look back and I says, I was in such a dark place in my life. I was in the middle of a storm like I'd never been in before, and somebody handed me a lifeline in the form of the inspiration for this compass. And I said to myself, it would be the ultimate in selfishness if I kept this to myself. I truly believe I'm on a mission in my own way. Please, I'm not trying to act like I'm anything special, but I'm just saying I was given a gift and I feel a responsibility to share that gift. I may never make a penny off the book, and I don't care. I mean, we're doing so fine in my company. I don't care. I'm putting everything back into marketing of the whole thing because I just want to get in as many hands as people as I can, so they're not 63 on the edge of the financial cliff, thinking, "Oh my gosh, what the heck am I going to do in my family, myself, that kind of thing." I guess I feel a responsibility to do this, and maybe it's a passion project, but it's not work for me. I love it. I love talking to you guys. You guys are so interesting, and I've had, like I said, 50 some podcasts in the last 2 months, and every one of them has been great. And I've been sharing with people, and the sales have been increasing of people, but the feedback I've been getting, and it's not an ego thing for me. It's not a money thing. I just want to quietly help people so they aren't in the same boat I was. And I feel like I say a responsibility to do that, not in a negative way, in a very positive way, a gratitude way, I guess is what it is.
Thank you.
Nice. So this is the last question we have before we get to the rapid fire round, which is just going to be a
Okay.
quick question and answer session. What do you want someone who's 45 and feeling stuck to take away from your story?
You're talking
I'm
to
telling
me,
you
David.
this. Okay. I'm kind of talking to listeners who are feeling the quiet desperation I felt when I was 63. I'm going to say it's not your ending, it's just your beginning. You just need clarity. And that's my mission, to get this one page of clarity, give it to people so they don't have to feel the terror I did. And what I'm going to tell your listeners is this: go to onepagewealthcompass.com and download your free PDF of this one page wealth compass. I'm telling you, I just want to give it to you. I'm not here to sell it or pitch or anything like that. Because if I tell you, when you see those steps and you get that kind of real clarity and the set it, forget it approach to this whole thing, and the book provides the final piece to you, and it gives you the simple clarity few people will ever achieve in their life when it comes to finances. I know that because I was blinded for 40 years. And I just, my whole thing is clear direction beats misdirected speed every time. For 40 years, I had misdirected speed. I was making good money, but my wheels are spinning. When I got this compass, I accomplished more in 6 years than I did in the previous 40 years. And if I can help people do that, that's my hope for everybody.
You know how Jay-Z said that 30 is the new 20? This episode should be called 60 is the new 20.
60 is the new 20.
Well, I'm 72. I'm 72 right now. And guys, I'm telling you, I don't feel anywhere near 72. I feel like 40 or 52. I really do. I'm just crazy. I shouldn't feel that way, but I do. And I that's why maybe I'm never going to retire. I'm just having too much fun.
David, selfishly, before we get to the rapid fire questions,
Yeah.
is the market going to crash? Are we going to have a black swan event?
I hope so. I am praying for one. I'm going to buy like you never seen buying before. I'm just hoping it will. I don't think it's going to, but either. But here's my thinking: whether it's up, whether it's down, whether it's stagnant, one thing you can know David's doing: every month I'm buying. Every month I'm buying, and that's what I'm going to. And you know what, guys? I'll probably never touch my portfolio. It's going to go to family and charity and my legacy because, like I said, I'm making all the money I need. I don't intend to retire, and maybe if health reasons I have to, but my health's great right now. And so I don't know. When you don't need your portfolio to live off of, I say get it all in the market and keep it in the market and ride that market, because history's shown us that it continually goes up and down, but it always fully recovers and it always goes on to new heights. And if you'll just stay in the market, you'll be so much better off financially than if you got in and out and in and out and in and out, like which I used to do for 40 years.
All right, David, let's get you out of here. Rapid fire. You got 30 seconds or less. Just answer with one, two sentences. If you have to go a little longer, then that's fine. But you ready?
Okay. All right, I'll try it. Yes, I'm ready.
Best financial book besides yours?
The best, I think, by Jack Bogle, who founder of Vanguard. He's written a number of books. Off the top of my head, I can't give you their names, but I read about 3 of his books, and all of them are unbelievably. Truth just springs out of them. No conflict of interest, and that's a really good place to if you're looking for that kind of truth.
What's the worst money advice you ever followed?
Oh my gosh, the worst money advice I ever followed. I guess buying individual stocks. I used to think that was the deal, and individual stocks go up and down. Some of the best blue chip companies 2 decades ago aren't even on the Fortune 500 anymore. And by owning the entire market now, man, I sleep so much better at night. So people are telling me, I believe that hot tips burn holes through portfolios. I really believe hot tips burn holes through portfolios. I finally learned that.
What would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Well, this is going to sound self-serving, but if this existed, I'd say get the dang compass and just follow it. I wish I can tell people 25 today, didn't exist back then, but that's what I would do. Follow this a simple system. And if it didn't exist, I'd say you better invent one yourself then. That kind of thing.
How many minutes per month do you spend managing your portfolio?
Oh my gosh, it's so ridiculous. I think 5 minutes. Really, I pay myself once a month, and when it hits my checking account, I take my percentage and I transfer it to my investment accounts, and it goes into 2 investments: the U.S. total market and the international total market. Then I log out and I never look at it again for the next month. And that's literally what I do. 5 minutes. Who needs an advisor for that? And look how what it's done for me. So I'm telling you, that's 5 minutes. What it is.
What's the biggest lie people believe about building wealth after 50 years old?
It's too late. that is the biggest lie, and I'm living proof that it's a lie. They think, oh, if I only started in my 20s, you've all heard the thing. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. I don't care how old or young you are, start now. And even if you're 80, that sounds like, okay, that's now you're going a little too far to even. No, even if you're 80 in trouble, if you will follow a simple path like this, you'll improve. Now, will you have a 7-figure portfolio in 6 years? Maybe not. But you know what? You'll be better than you were if you had just kept doing what you were doing. That's for sure. So it's saying too late is a lie.
Yeah. What's the hardest lesson Mary taught you?
The hardest lesson, Mary, is she's always right. When I figured that out, it was like, great. No, she's a wonderful wife. I just think the hardest lesson, I don't know if it's hard, but the best lesson she taught me was her faith. She has such faith, and she's an example to me on somebody who has unwavering faith and trust in the Lord and in the Spirit. And I'm just grateful that she's been that example to me, because it's been a powerful impact on my life.
All right, David, what's one thing money can't buy that people constantly confuse for wealth?
Well, I think maybe this. I'm going to say this sounds cliche, but happiness. I mean, yes, you have to have a certain amount of money, or else you're going to suffer. Okay, if you don't have a certain amount of money. But beyond that, I've heard many studies with, if you make like beyond 80,000 or beyond 70 or whatever it is, that number, there's some kind of number, maybe it's 100,000 now, that incrementally it doesn't give you much more happiness than that. And so relationships, family, that's what really is giving to people. I tell you, I feel selfish but I love giving. My wife and I, we love to adopt families at Christmas time anonymously. They don't know, and we love to go shopping and all that kind of thing, get their list of wishful things. That makes Christmas so much fun. I think we're enjoying it more than they are getting all the gifts. And so I just think giving is one of the best ways for happiness is giving. I really do.
There it is, David. This has been one of those conversations for anyone listening who's in the middle of their own parking lot moment or trying to build something while the clock feels like it's running out. Where can they find the book, grab the compass, and connect with you?
Go to onepagewealthcompass.com, download the free compass. I'm putting up a quick start video with the free compass, a free video, to kind of give you how to just simple ways to use it. It's just like a 4-minute deal. And that's where I'd start. I really would. And I think once you see the compass and you understand how easy it is to use, and you start getting the emails to explain things, you'll get clarity. And that's where I think that'll help you the most.
There it is. Charles, you want to tap in on anything?
Every week we have inspiring stories. This was no different. I loved hearing your story. I loved hearing about the lessons that you've learned on your journey. I think it's great that you are now just focusing on adding value, giving back to people, just inspiration. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
David. Yeah. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it for you. We spend every episode talking about buying, building, and exiting businesses. But David just proved something critical. The wealth architecture underneath the business determines whether you keep what you build. Speed doesn't matter if the compass is wrong. Peace.